Hello, Space Junkies, and welcome to episode 136 of What a Piece of Junk, the Star Wars podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm your host, Scott Botman, coming to you live from my brand new Domeicile, our geodesic dome home that we are finally occupying after several years of waiting for it to be built. And joining me, as always, is my original podcast co pilot, Mr. Derrick Marsh. Derrick, how's it going?
Going great. Congratulations. It's finally here. I know it's been very fun watching your domicile updates over the past year since breaking ground. So, very cool to finally get the opportunity for you to see you and Mita planting the flag in the domicile and calling it the house.
Exactly, totally. And someone who's going to be helping me christen it with a giant truckload of geeky stuff is my original Wookiee co-pilot, our very own gooey chewy Dave Filclone, the man of 1,000 nicknames, Nathan Miracle. Nathan, how's it going?
Hey, I want to point out that that truckload of geeky stuff was yours originally, and has been hanging out at my house for the past
I mean,
however many over a year, isn't it? Yeah.
it's almost 2 years. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So
I
I'll
hope
be
you're getting
excited.
interest on that, Nathan.
I hope so too.
It was the best deal in personal storage solutions.
Yes,
But
it was because I didn't
anywho,
charge you anything. I didn't know how long
I
it
am
was going
not
to be.
I'm not complaining in the least that you're bringing all that stuff with you sometime later this week. So thank you very much, because
Or
I
at,
Well, that's
also
a
don't
quick
have
at
to
least
have
as
to
turnaround.
much as I
transport
can
it.
get in one vehicle load. Because
Yes,
I no longer
yes.
have the truck. Well, I have the truck, but I'll be bringing my new electric vehicle.
Woo!
And you'll be able to charge it at Scott's.
That's right. We're all living in
Yes,
the future here.
that's right. And but you know who isn't
Woo!
living in the future? Our friends from the Bad Batch, because they are, of course, living in a galaxy far, far away, and it was a long time ago. And so that is what we're here to discuss on What a Piece of Junk, the Star Wars podcast, not our various home and vehicle updates. So, yeah, let's jump right into it because we are ready to start talking about The Bad Batch Season 3, which did premiere earlier last week. We are recording this on February the 25th. And so we have 3 episodes, speaking of Season 3, to discuss of what I'm affectionately calling Star Wars Stuffy Doll. I mean, The Bad Batch Season 3. Yeah, I'm probably being a little too harsh on the animators, but man, uh, Omega's stuffed animals, or facsimiles thereof, got a lot of screen time over this 3 episode premiere. So, yeah, I'll be talking about that. But yes, the 3 episodes that we are reviewing are episodes 1, 2, and 3. Does anybody have the titles handy? Because I can go look at that while you guys start thinking about your
Yes.
answers to the 5 questions.
The titles are Confined for episode 1, Paths Unknown for episode 2, and Shadows of Tantus for episode 3.
Oh. I did like the title for episode 3 the best. But
Yeah.
anyway, let's go ahead and kick it off with the 5 questions. And Derrick, we'll start with you. What was your favorite part of, and we're just going to go ahead and say these episodes, because if we take the time to go through all 3 episodes, 5 questions each, 15 questions, then we're just going to have the longest episode of the podcast we've ever recorded. At least the longest since the anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back. But anyway, I digress. Derrick, what was your favorite part of these episodes, plural?
Well, let's see here. I mean, it was just good to get it back. I will say this: I was a little, not too enthusiastic at first, but when they released that trailer about a month ago to let us know, official release date here, the trailer was well put together. It was excited, as we talked about, right? We knew it's going to be 15 episodes, and we all said, "Hey, we know this is the final season." Obviously, Filoni knew this going into it, so we were hoping, "Hey, let's not get too many filler episodes, right?" And jumping into that, I would say my overall reaction was fine for it, right? I mean, it's kind of getting us back into the groove of things, along with just getting the kind of initial setup, right? Obviously, there it shows you a little bit of times passed in episode 1. And so you kind of get that feeling a little bit as it progresses. It was kind of funny seeing another prison sequence, right? Since we've already had that kind of with Andor. So, and apparently there is more than one way out with this, but we will definitely see as we get past episode 3. But obviously, my favorite part from this 3-part mini series episode arc, whatever you want to call it.
Yes, yes.
It's like they're made for television, but we're going to release all 3 at the same time because it's all, just one story. I would say that would definitely be, as I mentioned in the chat earlier this week after watching it, was Ian McDermott as the voice of the Emperor. Just phenomenal presence, his voice. It's weird because when we got to see him as the Emperor, even as he became as big and well known as he was when we got to see him in episode 9 of The Rise of Skywalker, I didn't really care much for the way they did his facial expressions, right? Like you obviously got to see a bit more in the prequels, as he was the senator, right? But when he was right before he got disfigured and all that stuff, but really connection to the way he does the voicing and then what he does with the characters' expressions and the animation, and all that. So I really enjoy when he's on because I think it's just phenomenal. His voice is perfect for the character. You just feel the grimace and the threat and the fear that the Emperor portrays. And yeah, I would definitely say, I mean, he was only there for briefly in episode 3, but to me that was the point of really just seeing that the reveal there, and then having him be there on Mount Tantus as he was escorted with Hemlock and all that.
Well, it was really great to see McDermott playing the Emperor again. That was probably one of the things I enjoyed a great deal as well. Although I'm not going to say that it was my favorite part because I don't want to steal your thunder, Derek. But Nathan, what was your favorite part of these 3 episodes?
Well, my favorite part also came from the 3rd episode, but it wasn't the Emperor himself. It was using the dial with the testing tubes as a literal ticking clock. We get to
Ooh, that
see,
was cool.
yeah, we get to see Omega's sample put in. We see where it is, and then we keep referring back to it and click, click, one step closer, click, click, one step closer. And we have this countdown that works both for the audience and in universe. Why we have this amount of time, kind of the Doylist and the Watsonian perspectives there, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. Good answer and good analysis. I think for me, I'm going to be a little more, you know, traditional. I loved the episode parts where the young clones and Wrecker and Hunter were fighting the big evil plant of doom. What was
You
it
mean the
called?
Watcher in the water?
Strength.
Yeah,
Yes, the Watcher in the Water. That's pretty much what it was
it
because we
looked
know
a
how
lot
much
like
Dave Filoni loves Lord of the Rings.
it looked a lot like a sarlacc, but from
Yes.
before they gave it the beak.
Right, right. I just loved the whole fight with it, and I loved the part when our Clone Force 99 friends first encounter it, and the young clones are like, "No, don't attack it; we'll become hostile." And Wrecker's like, "This isn't already hostile,"
No,
because the thing's trying to eat them. And then, of course, later Wrecker uses his patented solution for everything. I'm going to put more bombs on it because one bomb stunned it, and then they just went ahead and dropped the whole crate, and then threw the one last rim shot, ding 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 ding, boom, and it utterly incinerated the vine there. So that was pretty cool. But I can definitely say that vine is of the dark side, and you know how I can tell? Why? Because I can just feel the dark side behind me glowing with evil.
For those not watching
Yes.
on YouTube, again, go to our YouTube channel and watch this. But if not, if you're actually listening to it on a podcast platform, Scott has a new little neat trick that he's using magic to magically transport the lights behind him into the color of his mood, almost like a mood ring.
Yes, it's definitely not an app on my smartphone and some fancy LED lights pointed at the accent hexagon in the roof of our dome.
It
Definitely
is
not that.
mere coincidence that you always happen to check your phone prior to it changing colors.
That's right. I do have an app on my phone to check the presence of the force around me. That's what I'm doing.
He'll just have to get
for
really
mine.
good at like where he can move it on, keep it on his desk, and then do it with his hands without looking at it.
I got to do the magic hand thing. Yes. Anyway, but no, that's enough dark side out of me. So let's try to bring it back a little more to the light side. There we go.
Well, real
Okay.
quick though,
There you go.
guys. So you brought up a good point, Nathan, right? So it reminded you of the Sarlacc, right? So again, that was created by Hemlock. That was the reason they blew up his base. So do you think he used Sarlacc DNA combined with plant DNA to make that?
I think that's very
Ooh.
likely.
To borrow a meme. Well, now I do.
I mean, he is Hemlock. He should be doing stuff with plants.
That also makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next question. Of course, what did you like least, or what was your least favorite part of these episodes? And for me, I'm going to sound like such a curmudgeon, but it was Stuffy Doll. There was just too much Stuffy Doll. I get it. She's a kid. She has a doll. They're taking it from her. She keeps making a new one because she lost her original. Blah, 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 blah. Yes, it was just a little too heavy-handed, or perhaps even schmaltzy for them to be sort of eliciting an emotional reaction from us. Omega is suffering. She's missing her stuffy doll. This is so sad. I mean, it's a little ham-fisted. I mean, I realize Star Wars is never subtle, but still, it was a bit too much for me. So, too much stuffy doll in episodes 1 and 2. Thankfully, as far as I recall, no stuffy doll in episode 3.
No, it was.
It got taken in episode 3.
Oh, it did?
Yeah. That's when they came in and said, we're doing a routine check.
Yeah, and Mary Carr then gives it back to her, right? So
that's right. Yes. So we had Stuffy Doll stand in episode 1, where she's made it out of the straw. The real Stuffy Doll hanging out on the Marauder without her in episode 2, and then once again Straw Stuffy Doll in episode 3. So yes, too much Stuffy Doll. That's what I liked the least.
But did you see she left the fake Stuffy Doll in her cell when she made her jailbreak? She did leave it behind.
That's right. Yeah. Well, because presumably she's about to be reunited with the real Stuffy Doll. And you guys are just making me keep talking about it because you know how much I dislike it. All right, I'm moving on. Derrick, what was your least favorite part of this episode?
I'll leave it to judgment because it's only the first part of a 3-part episode. Because again, we talked about this, right? We don't want filler episodes. But there was points in episode 1 and 2 where it really felt like they probably could have just combined it almost, like, because it just felt very slow in part 1, and episode 2 was very just drawn out to the point of like, you know, they have the young clone kids, and like we were supposed to have this suspense, like, oh, the 2 young clones that were left behind going to steal the ship. No, they're going to go use the ship and go rescue him like we already knew that, right? Like it was already predetermined. Like for one, we know that anything Wrecker's in a situation has to survive at this point because he shows up in Rebels, so we know that. So it's just overall, I just kind of felt like I said, you know, give me a little bit more quick pace on stuff. And I know I appreciate, like I said, episode 1 where it was trying to be this gloom and stuff, but I just felt myself again when it's like, get me to the good stuff. I don't need this long drawn out, you know, way of they're doing the things, because otherwise I just find myself looking at my phone. And I find, you know, as I'm watching shows, not just Star Wars, but any show, if I'm not putting my phone away, then you don't have a good show. If I'm literally watching your show and not messing with my phone, whether it's just scrolling through Facebook or messaging you guys about like how boring this is, then you got a good, good episode or a good show. So.
Wait, hold on. Okay, I saw Nathan's brow furrowing there about. Wait, does Wrecker show up in Rebels? I know we got Echo. Not Echo.
Isn't that Wrecker part of Rex's crew?
We got
no.
It's not. We got Rex and Gregor and
Wolf.
Wolf. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, I thought Wrecker was one with them.
Nope.
Okay.
I think you're probably thinking of Gregor, but that is a reg. A reg
Very
who
similar. I mean, what with being clones and all.
well, yeah, there's that. Gregor's a reg who got abandoned on a planet during a mission and lost his memory and didn't know that he was a clone for a little while. And that
Oh,
the
I always
thinking
thought
is
that they thought he was Wrecker. My bad then. Okay.
no.
Okay. Well, that's a little bit better then for that, but still, I could still go back to episode 1 and 2 combined.
I think your point is sort of valid that they're not going to kill Wrecker in episode 2. Yeah, we know that he's going to be in later episodes in the season. There's no way that he's going to die there. I could see them going with the kids steal the ship and they somehow survive another way. And then there's a whole nother mission where they got to get the ship back. But we've already done that. That was last season. So we wouldn't
and I
want to
was
do that again.
really annoyed. I was really annoyed with Hunter and Wrecker for not improving ship security after the ship got stolen once last year, and that time the guy made it off planet with the thing. I'm like, I know we saw the scene of the clones hotwiring it, and ostensibly those young clones had a more deep familiarity with the ship because, as one of them was talking about, he had been training on how to fly that kind of ship back on Camino. So there's that idea that, oh well, he's really good at hot wiring the hatch, because he knows how that ship works because he's been to the ship academy for the Marauder. But still, I'm like, come on, guys, operational secure. Let's clean up our OPSEC here, Clone Force 99. Anyway, Nathan, what did you dislike the most about these episodes?
Honestly, episode 2 I didn't enjoy as much as episodes 1 or 3. That one got a little bit long and boring to me because of what Derrick said. We know that they're going to make it off this planet. We get them getting the intel at the beginning of the episode, and then they go to this planet that isn't the right planet. And that we have this whole side mission where all they're doing is getting the information that they thought they got at the start of the episode. So I didn't care too much for that.
And we can kind of already tell, because we know how much Filoni likes his somewhat formulaic animation, that the only real reason that episode will be important is because of those 2 young clone guys. They're totally going to show up again sometime later this season.
Absolutely. I expect there's going to be a clone rebellion, and they're going to join in with that.
Sorry, 3 young clone guys.
It's 3 young
clones, right? Yeah. Oh gosh, 3 is our theme. Apparently,
I actually think it's different. I think what's going to happen is that those 3 clone kids are going to be, like I said, I think Padu or whatever the place is gets blown up. So I wouldn't be surprised if those 3 clone kids don't make it out of when that place gets decimated by Hemlock.
Yeah, but then they're going to show us those 3 kids.
Yeah, they're the 3.
They're going to be our emotional connection to this island that we got to see once, but don't really care all that much about.
What happens if they don't make it, though? Then I will say this is a good season because we actually have clone kids getting murdered.
I mean, it is the Empire. They blow up planets when they can. Yeah, Derrick has gone to the dark side.
I'm teetering on purple.
Dun 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 dun.
You just advocated killing kids. I mean, that's
hey,
like the sign
Anakin
that
can do it.
is...
He could become a Force ghost. There's always hope for everyone.
No, I'm not going to tell you that you're irredeemable, but for right now, you get the. I'll find it eventually. You get the red light. Okay, so moving on to question number 3. What connections did you draw between this episode and the larger Star Wars galaxy? So since this is neither light nor dark, it could be both, I'm going for the Mace Windu button with the purple color. I am the Bendu, the one in the middle. All right, so Nathan, connections to the rest of the Star Wars universe.
Well, there was this big, huge, obvious one. This mysterious visitor that I knew was Palpatine the moment they said they had a mysterious visitor. There's only one person who rates this kind of security upgrade and VIP treatment. Yeah, it's definitely Palpatine. I'm not going to say
You
too
didn't
much.
think for a minute that might have been Vader? I thought it might have been Vader.
Nah, not even for a moment, because it's too recent. Vader doesn't have the reputation amongst the Empire yet.
I don't
Now,
think the Emperor wants Vader to know either.
That's true too.
That's a good point too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think Vader would be sent there, and I don't think that Hemlock would have cared all that much if it was Vader. That would just be one of the Emperor's cronies coming. He wouldn't know that this is a Dark Lord of the Sith. I don't know that he knows that Palpatine is a Dark Lord of the Sith. He just knows he's the Emperor, but that's enough. But I'm not going to say too much about that because we do have a whole another question about it. So I'm just going to leave it there. There's lots of connections with Palpatine, and we'll talk more about them.
Yeah, mine's kind of a cheat that I'm going to mention something basically with Palpatine as well. But hey, I mean, he's like the big bad for the Skywalker saga. So it was the fact that we heard the code name once again, Operation Necromancer, because Hemlock uses it when he's talking to Palpatine, and of course we've heard it used on The Mandalorian as we continue to talk about Operation Necromancer. And it's another one of those things, again, Star Wars is never subtle, so this was another one of those things where I was essentially yelling at the TV, how is it not obvious that this is super evil? It's called Project Necromancer. But Star Wars bad guys are sometimes just in it to be bad. And Hemlock's speech about the hounds and how letting one of them that has weakness go out into the wilds is cruel in its own way, really paints him in a almost Khan Noonien Singh, if I may borrow from Star Trek, light of eugenics and only the strong survive, and if I may borrow from Babylon 5, only the survival of the fittest. So we're going to work for the shadows and winnow out all the weakness and make the best and brightest and most ruthless group. But of course, Omega is making the case for the viewer when she basically says, you have to, let them have a chance. And she kind of is doing a modified version of, I still have hope because rebellions are built on hope, right? The dark side, Hemlock and all those guys about their eugenics, they're all about, well, statistically speaking, you have no chance. And, never tell me the odds, baby. Never tell me the odds. So that was my really fun connection, was Operation Necromancer, and then also rebellions are built on hope, or in this case, freedom for Wrathhounds, or what were they called? Kuka Hounds?
Well,
Anyway,
Fletcher was
but yes,
the one right? Fletcher was the main.
No, Batchy was the name.
Batchy. Oh, okay.
As in Bad Batchy.
Batcher.
Batcher. Okay.
Yeah. I'll look up what the species was while Derrick tells us his connections.
Well, I was going to say, though, but do you think Palp now regrets massacring the Night Sisters when he's trying to do everything called necromancer, right? Like, you think you would have an expert.
No. He does not regret that at all.
Jealous. He wants to prove that the Sith mastery of the dark side is greater than the Night Sister mastery of the dark side. It's like two rival religious sects going at it.
But do you think even though he mass murdered them all, he still would have kept one or two of them around, just like he did with Nala Singh?
Their version of necromancy is not what he's after.
Okay.
Because the people that they bring back don't have their own consciousness. They're just kind of
like mindless.
But that's what
zombies.
you use science for.
Well, yes, but that means you don't need the Night Sisters.
Like I said, what do you get when you combine science and magic? You get the best of both worlds. So,
or the worst.
Sorcery. You get Thundar the Barbarian. Sorry, that's a whole different podcast. Lurka Hound. Lurka Hound. That's what those things were called.
Yeah, I noticed they were not the. I cannot pronounce the name. The ones from the Heir to the Empire trilogy that haunted the Ysalamiri.
Oh yeah. I can't think of what they're called.
Like Vorschners or something like that. At
Yeah.
first, I thought that's what it was, but they're not.
They
Or at least they're
equally
renamed.
impronounceable names. If they hunt down the Isalamiri, their name must also be like a random assortment of vowels and consonants.
I know it has like VRO in something.
Runath or something like that. Anyway, go ahead, Derek. What connections did you draw?
I mean, obviously you guys hit on some of it, right? And it was hard to say because like I said, to me, like I said, it was kind of like rewatching Andor a little bit, like I said, but there was only one way out, and that was through the tunnel, right? And you knew that when she let out Batcher, that that was going to be her escape at some point too. But I did thought the uh kind of like the whole, as she was sneaking through and she was doing and Crosshairs was doing his whole distraction thing. I thought that was pretty funny, for how almost kind of felt like when Obi-Wan was going through the Death Star, and how he was like, kind of sneaking through, and then he had like the control panel, or she was using the control panel, and he was messing with the central core systems there. So got a little reminiscent there. And then how the stormtroopers are walking by and talking about like day-to-day stuff that they're having to deal with, right? And I would say they weren't talking about speeders, so that would have been funny if they were, but I just thought that was kind of funny. So just get a little bit of that background dialogue going on to make it feel like, oh, okay. Because like, what else are stormtroopers supposed to do when they're on patrol, right? And then again, just kind of in the prison scene too, with the day-to-day repetition, it's just like an Andor, right? Like they're doing their 12-hour shifts. They're having to do like literally on, par every time. She's seeing Crosshairs every time, every morning, right? So I kind of, like I said, got where you could definitely feel that was still maintained, even though that would have been, at least 10, I would guess 10 years earlier than when we would actually see Andor in prison, if not like 15 years, maybe, or close to it. Because, obviously with the way the timeline is and all that, it's some between somewhere 10 and 15-year gap. But anyways, like I said, there was some stuff there. And then it was always funny too, then when like the Emperor arrives, you get like the whole platoon of everyone out, right? And it's like, well, who's on duty then? If everybody's here greeting the Emperor, right? And then like, okay, wouldn't it be worse if you had the Emperor coming and you didn't want him to know anything about it? Like, why would you have all these lackeys if you didn't even want anybody else to know? Like, you got to think at some point somebody's like sending some type of message to somebody like, oh my God, the Emperor just came today, right? It was such a cool work day, It's like,
especially when you've got non-clones in your force.
That's what I'm saying.
Somebody's going to send a letter to their parents going, oh my gosh, you'll never guess what I got to do today.
You're not going to believe what I saw today.
Yeah, you should see it on the Empire newsletter, right? There's me in the corner. I was the focus guy in the picture. Like, I just don't get it. It's like supposed to be secretive or not secretive. Like, okay.
Yeah. I just thought of a couple of more. I enjoyed seeing those red-suited Imperial guards. That was very much a callback to Return of the Jedi, of course, because that was right in my wheelhouse when I was a kid. Those were some of the first Star Wars figures that I had that I really took care of instead of just playing with them till they fell apart. And secondly, I just now thought about this one. When we see Omega in her cell and she's scratching her day tally marks onto the metal wall, it's very much like Rey in The Force Awakens inside the crashed AT-AT, and she's scratching the tally marks. And we even get shown that this is now the passage of time, because we get to see a certain tally, and then some time passes and we see, gosh, the tally has really grown.
And it looks like her hair grew out a little bit, and then she mirrors Carr with it, right, with the half ponytail and kind of the bang hanging off. So it's like, I mean, they are clothed the same, so it does make sense that it would grow exactly the same way.
She's there for something like 6 months, if I figured that correctly.
I think you're right.
I'm glad we didn't get 6 months of Bad Batch mini episodes of just MacGuffin chasing.
Oh yes, yeah.
Anyways.
Cool. All right. So, before we move on to question 4, since we're trying not to make this episode span the gamut of time here, we'll take our quick break for this episode here so that we can hear from our friend Kevin about the other shows here on the Fandom Podcast Network.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blooded Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our fandom flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast, with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek and the Orville Show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Kevin. So let's move on to question number 4. Or sorry, yes, number 4. Derrick, take it away.
Okay, so as we mentioned in episode 3, the Emperor comes to Mount Tantus, and obviously with Project Necromancer, and we get basically this super high vault. And another link to the the overall Star Wars universe was when they were walking into that room, you had the laser door gates, right? Just like you had in episode 1 with Darth Maul fighting Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, right? And Naboo. So there was that thing. So they're all walking through it, right? And then there's the big reveal of basically it looks like this giant, another like central core system, or almost a la Matrix style, with these pods or black cocoon cases or whatever. And obviously, you know, if you've been following any of Star Wars, you're thinking, okay, what's in them? What's in the box, right? And so we get the coming up to that, and Hemlock unlocks one, and you know it's a glass case because obviously you can see the black go away, and then there's some light and reflection coming out of it, but we don't get to see what's in the box. So my question is, what do we think is in the box?
Great question. I'm going to go first before Nathan steals my answer. Not that I think he's actually going to, but, you know, just in case. I think that they will be more clones, and it'll be a clone. It'll be a series of clones, kind of like Snoke was a series of Palpatine clones, but this will be a series of clones of a Jedi that we as the viewer all know. I don't know if it's going to be Plo Koon, because you know how Dave Filoni loves any excuse to use Plo Koon, so it could be a clone of Plo Koon, or maybe Ki-Adi-Mundi, or even more impactful for the audience, perhaps it's a series of Mace Windu clones, because we know that Palpatine could easily access Mace Windu DNA because his hands are still like laying on the floor of the, or not hands, but
because in his
hand.
pocket.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Fell in
Yeah.
his lap, right?
Yeah.
So he's just like, I'm going to save this for
Right.
later.
Yeah. Oh, this could be useful. This will come in handy. I'm just kidding. And so, yeah, that's my prediction. It is a series of clones of Mace Windu, a la the scene in The Mandalorian where we saw a series of Moff Gideon clones. So yeah, and then of course, the whole point is to get midi-chlorian infused blood from the clone so that they can use it in the body of whatever Project Necromancer is trying to do as Palpatine's new host body. Nathan, were you going to say Mace Windu clones?
I was not going to say Mace Windu clones, but now I am.
Hey, now I am.
I was going to say I believe that these are clones, that we are seeing the beginning stages of what we end up seeing in the Rise of Skywalker, with dark secrets only the Sith knew, cloning, that sort of thing. I think these are different types of cloning techniques than the Kaminoans were using. Perhaps these are Sparty cloning cylinders, if we want to pull a name from the Heir to the Empire trilogy. And by the way, I looked it up. Vornsker is the name of the
sounds like some
hounds.
Icelandic or Viking era beast.
And they come from the planet Merkur. So yeah, it was a whole lot of who needs vowels
to be able to pronounce these audiobooks. What are those? Anyway,
right. But I find your proposal of this being a Mace Windu clone intriguing, because they do mention that we're trying to make sure that we don't lose the M count, which presumably Mace Windu would have a very high midichlorian count, being such a master that is.
M count stands for midichlorian count, but clearly it stands for mace count.
Oh, yeah, no, midichlorians. But one thing I really like about your idea that it's Mace Windu is in the Heir to the Empire trilogy, the clone Luke came from Luke's hand. So we could keep that aspect of, we're telling essentially the same story, but the clone is a different, Mace with two A's. Mace.
Marseille. And so also,
it's French.
We also have the idea, continuing from Heir to the Empire, a mad Jedi Master clone like Joris Kaboth. So oh man, this would be. Oh, and then when we oh my gosh, and then when we make our movie to tell the Heir to the Empire story for the Mandoverse, Sam Jackson comes back as the crazy Mace Windu clone. Oh, it, baby, come on, this is going to be great.
And one thing I like about the idea of going this route is the Legends material. They're called legends in part because you can think of them as, well, these are legends that people told about Star Wars. Well, where do legends come from? Usually from some kernel of truth. So it could be that what happened, not that kind of kernel. It could be that something similar to what happened in Heir to the Empire did happen, and that's where the legends came from. But within the Star Wars universe, things just got mixed up and people attributed it to Luke instead of Mace Windu.
Yeah, that would be cool. Also, this gives us a good reason to, sometime in the future, change the title of Star Wars, The Mandalorian and Grogu, to Star Wars, Heir to the Empire. Because, God, do I hate that title. Anyway. All right, so, Derrick, it's your chance to answer your own question here. What's in the box?
So,
oh, I stumped him.
Or convinced him.
I've dehydrated him. Quick, Robin, pass me down the
we all know
rehydrator.
Dave Filoni loves to throw stuff. Or did I come back? Am I here?
Yes, you're back.
Am I there?
Hello? You have been rehydrated.
Okay, I'm back.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, obviously when the AT&T issue had something earlier this week, I think it affected Spectrum because it's just been acting up the past few days. So I'm on my 2G Wi-Fi because my 5G is not working. I don't know. I have to call the guy on Monday tomorrow to have him come out and fix the equipment. So anyways, as I was saying, I don't think it's obviously I'm all about what you guys are saying, trust me, but I don't think it's dealing with actual clones at all. I think that'll come later for cloning Palp and cloning. I think because I think Moff Gideon goes rogue right when he's cloning himself. I think is not part of what Palp's plan was, right? This is after Palp has died and getting and using it for his own sources, right? And this is where you kind of get that, fractions of the empire that we talked about, which was one of the great storylines of Legends, right? Was the fractions of the empire. So I think that gives them open room for that. I think it's dealing with the first rendition of Dark Troopers. And I think that's what this is. I do like the idea that people think it's probably Palp or Snoke or whatever you're saying, or it could be Mace Windu, which again, be totally cool with that if they go that road of Heir to the Empire. But I think this is the first rendition. And I don't know whether it's a clone that they did, or it could be maybe like somebody, like you said, like a Jedi Count, stuff like that, or somebody with a high metachlorian that they feel needs to be in the Dark Trooper outfit. But I'm still, banking that they're going to give us version 1 and 2 at some point of those Dark Troopers, since we know version 3 is what we see in the Mandalorian, and that at this point would be about 20 years from where, maybe even a little bit sooner than that, just depending on where this is taking place prior to A New Hope. But I would say that's what I think it is. I think it's not a force user at this point. I think it's be Django, like the original Django. They got his head or something from Geonosis, right? And they're trying there, or it could be someone else.
That's an interesting idea that it could be a more quote unquote pure copy of Jango Fett's to make a better warrior, because Palpatine's obviously a fan of Jango Fett as a warrior. Because he used him so much during the Clone Wars, and then he thought he was such a great warrior that he manipulated the Kaminoans to make sure that that's the guy they're going to start copying. And he was right. I mean, the clone troopers are outstanding warriors. They obviously they beat the droid army to the point where Palpatine was now ready to do his master plan. But also, they defeated several other kinds of warriors all throughout the Clone Wars. The Geonosians.
They defeated Jedi.
Yeah, they defeated Jedi. Well, of course, now one could make the case that Order 66 was, the ultimate surprise attack, and so, of course, our chief weapons are surprise. And so, but yeah, help me out, Nathan. I mean, didn't they in the Clone Wars series, the Clone Troopers fought against all kinds of warriors, right?
Yes. Yeah, they mostly fought against droids, and quite frankly, the reason they mostly fought against droids was so that it could be a kid's show. But there were times that they fought against other forces, like the Umbarans, which in that arc they ended up fighting other clones too. Unfortunately, very effectively at times. But yeah, they definitely fought against other forces as well, even if they were primarily against droids. But I mean, droids, you think about it, they're incredibly good. They calculate all their shots perfectly, theoretically. And really the advantage that the clones had was, lateral thinking and not just following their programming. The fact that they were as effective as they were against droids is really impressive.
Yeah. Okay.
So now you combine them.
Hopefully,
right.
With Dark Troopers. So hopefully we'll get to see during this season of the Bad Batch what was in those canisters. I hope that's not one of these things where this is answered in some other Star Wars property altogether.
Or just
I hope
never
that doesn't.
answered.
I hope that doesn't get
Or
answered in a comic book or something.
Yeah, you've got to play Star Wars Battlefront 3 in order to find out the answer to that. Okay, so last question for this episode of the podcast. Take it away, Nathan.
All right, so Emery Carr, very interesting character. I would like to know everybody's thoughts on this character. Is she going to help Omega or Omega in the end, or was this just a ploy to buy her trust for a later betrayal? What is her deal?
Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal. That is my prediction, is that Carr is reminiscent of the whole idea that clones were bred for tactical thinking, but also thinking outside the box. Carr is setting up Omega for a betrayal of some kind. because I think that Carr is absolutely and totally loyal to the Empire, right down to the fact that I feel like maybe she's still got a chip in her head. Because, I mean, if you're a clone installed at a Imperial facility, you probably haven't had the chance or even thought about removing your control chip. And so, if that's the case, then of course she's loyal to the Empire. That's how she's programmed to be. And I don't think that Carr has enough DNA deviance like Rex to overcome it, even for short periods of time. She's just totally on the dole of the Empire. She's absolutely doing all of the dark side stuff. And so, therefore, we're going back to the dark side. So, yeah. So, Derrick, what do you think? Is Carr setting Omega up for betrayal or something else entirely?
I feel like typical Filoni, right? Or we're thinking, oh, she's being nice, she's gonna help her, but we're gonna be one ahead of Filoni, and we're gonna say that she is not, right? She's gonna be a ploy, but at the same time, I'm like, but then Filoni's gonna be like, no, no, no. She's gonna be good, and she's gonna actually help Omega. Did I disappear?
I hope you're right.
Am I back?
No. We got enough of the gist. I hope you're right. I
Oh.
hope she does end up helping
Okay.
Omega. But I'm just saying that's not my prediction.
Okay.
I'm more my spirit is with you, but my logical brain tells me she has the emotion chip inside her brain and must obey all programming.
Yeah.
I
would agree with that more, but like I said, it would be interesting to see if she actually helps Omega in the end. Because that would be then reverse of what we think, right?
Yeah. All right, Nathan, your own answer to your own query.
Well, it seems like it's up to me to break the tie. Is she going to help Omega or is she going to betray Omega? And I'm going to go with secret option number 3. She never gets the chance. Hemlock figures out that she has at least some sympathy for Omega, blames her for Omega's escape and Crosshair's escape, and kills her before she has a chance to do any of it.
Ouch.
I mean Palpatine's there. He's known for.
Oh, he technically left already. He already left.
Palpatine was there. The Empire is known for saying, "You have failed me for the last time. You are terminated."
Would that be funny if she was the mother of Admiral Ozzel?
You're as clumsy as you are stupid.
Cracked up. Good times. All right. Well, whatever happens with Carr, we'll be analyzing it on the next episodes of What a Piece of Junk as we continue our way through Star Wars: The Bad Batch Season 3. I thought overall it was a 7.5 out of 10 scale beginning of Season 3, with the 3 episodes being somewhat interconnected. And so I'm eager to see what happens next. And if you guys want to hear us talk about what happens next, stick around and listen to more episodes. But before we finish this episode, it's time for Derrick's favorite part of the show, and that is what Star Wars t-shirts are we wearing this week? Derrick, what you got? Looks like you got some non-t-shirt stuff.
Yeah, I've actually got something, like I said, that because I'm just wearing my Boba It's Cold Outside sweater. No, I picked up something that it was supposed to come out back at the beginning of January, but apparently Marvel, the print run was damaged in the goods that were all sent out. So I had to wait a little bit longer, but I finally got my copy of. Apparently, they've done a lot of variant covers for Darth Vader episode 4, comic book episode 42, but I really like this one, so I had to pick it up.
Right, Ahsoka wielding her twin lightsabers and deflecting a bunch of red blaster bolts. That's a great cover. Darth Vader issue 42 has a bunch of variant covers. I'm quite pleased in my geeky little heart. So that's really cool.
And that might actually at some point get me enough to go to some of these cons and get Ashley and Rosario's autographs on these. So
that would be awesome. Cool,
Yeah.
cool. Well, I would show off my Star Wars T-shirt, but most of my house is still in boxes, and I don't know where my Star Wars T-shirts are. So I'm wearing Svengoolie tonight. He is
Darth
a horror host
Svengoolie.
on MeTV. That's right, and he Darth Svengoolie, yes. And he's a big Star Wars fan. He's actually a big Star Trek fan too. So he'd be happy to be on the podcast. So there we have it. Nathan, you've got a cool little logo on your lapel there. What
Yes,
Star
I
Wars
do.
shirt are you wearing?
This is one I've worn once before, but I really like it. It is my woven T-shirt from her universe. It's basically a Hawaiian shirt, and on the back we have this big
Ooh.
dual.
From
Yes,
episode 3,
Very nice.
Revenge of the
Ve-
Sith.
very
Obi-Wan
comfy.
versus Anakin.
Would recommend. Definitely check out her universe if you haven't. They've got some good clothes. It's where I buy most of my Star Wars stuff, and honestly, most of my clothes at this
Branding
point.
it that when it's male and female, it's called our universe.
That is true. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. If you're looking on the website, anything that is gender neutral or even just male is branded as our universe. But the website is still
Cool.
her universe.
I like that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, if you guys out there want to get any cool What a Piece of Junk merchandise like t-shirts or mouse pads or coffee mugs or iPad covers, just head on over to tpublic.com and check out the Fandom Podcast Network store. And you can see not only our What a Piece of Junk merchandise, but merchandise for all the other cool podcasts that you hear here on the FPN. All right, Derrick, let folks know where they can find us out there on the internet, please, sir. Or maybe he can't find us on the internet either.
Well, while he tries to find us on the internet, I will tell you that you can find us pretty much anywhere that you listen to podcasts. That includes the master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. You can also find us on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play. I have CarPlay in my new vehicle. I can listen to us on Spotify on the way to work and back. It's great.
It's a junk. You
Makes
can obviously
sense.
find our Facebook page. Or did you lose me?
We did, but you picked up right where I was. So keep going.
I was doing a whole spiel of stuff. So, anyways, yeah. So, and I've even restarted my router. No, this is why we need 5-star reviews so I can afford internet.
Yes.
That's right. Anyway, no, we had just gotten to the social media part, Derrick. So you can hit the Facebook deal, and yeah, you can find us on Facebook and whatever is left of Twitter and Instagram. You guys know the spiel at this point, Anyway,
I mean, we're at 136 episodes. Come on.
That's right. Get with the program, people. All right. Anyway, so yes,
we expect you to go do your homework. Go back to episode 1.
That's right. We want to thank you guys for listening to us as always. I am giddy, as you can tell, with my new house. It could also be the fact that I was up until 3 a.m. unloading the moving van, and I'm more delirious than giddy, but still, I'm enjoying the new high-speed internet here as well. And so next time, you guys will be able to hear us talk about whatever happens next on the Bad Batch. But until then, we want to thank you for listening, and please always respect each other and always respect each other's fandom. All right, Nathan, punch it.